Welcome to Linguistics Tube. On this channel, you will find videos about learning English, as well as more scientific videos about linguistics and psychology, and more general academic topics such as study skills, conducting research, and writing academic articles. This episode is part of my series which explores how to write effectively in English. We will learn about a range of writing skills which you can use generally, and I will also share my advice for specific writing exams, such as TEM-4 and IELTS. Specifically, this episode is part of my mini-series about the TEM-4 exam. Here, I will discuss the summary section of the 2016 writing task, using examples from my students' writing. In my opinion, it can be easy to get a high grade for summary writing, but it can be equally easy to get a low grade for it. This is because many students overthink summary writing. By that, I mean they ignore the basics and get distracted by writing a beautiful paragraph with excellent language. You should definitely focus on doing that in the opinion section of the TEM-4 essay, but in the summary section, you must absolutely focus on the most basic task, which is to summarize succinctly the important information in the article. That is my most basic advice for you. Do not overthink the summary section. Instead, focus on the most basic task. In the 2016 article, I have identified 6 essential pieces of information that must be included in your summary. Let's have a look at them. Here we go. 1. Parents will be banned from taking their children on holiday during the school term. 2. Parents do this because holidays are cheaper during the school term. For 3, you can see 2 options. These are 2 separate important points in the article, but I believe they are quite similar. In other words, they are 2 ways to say the same thing. So, in my opinion, holidays during the school term may damage the child's education more or less expresses the same meaning as education is more important than a holiday. Therefore, you only need to write one of them in your summary. 4. Head teachers are no longer allowed to give permission to parents. 5. If schools give permission, and if parents take their children on holiday, they will both be penalized. For 6, the article again has 2 separate points, which I believe are similar enough that you only need to include one in your summary. Either this will help to make education more rigorous, or this will help to reduce truancy levels. Regarding 3 and 6, where there is an option, you could include everything if you want to make your summary as complete as possible. To do this, simply join the sentences together. For example, education is more important than a holiday, so holidays during the school term may damage the child's education. And, by reducing truancy levels, this will help to make education more rigorous. You may find, however, that you run out of words and time if you try to include everything. So, you must find the balance between the succinctness of the information that you include and the amount of words you use to express it. If you compare my 6 points to the article, you will see that I did not use a chronological order. In other words, I did not use the order that the points appeared in the article. This is because, when you put them in the original order, they do not completely make sense. This is not unusual, because the article was written in a newspaper, and therefore the writer chose the order that made the most sense in a 250-word text, with multiple paragraphs, quotes, unessential information, and repetitions of essential information. However, when you strip away all the extra information and repetitions, the essential 6 points were not introduced in the most logical way. This is really important, so you must remember this. When you plan your summary, you must not only find the most important points, but you must also not blindly rely on the order that they appear in the article, because the order may not make the most sense as a summary. You can see by now that, in the exam, there is a lot to do in only a short time. So that's why we must prepare as well as possible. So, let me now explain the most logical order for the 6 points, which you should follow for your summary. 1. You should state the topic, which is that term time holidays have been banned. 2. You should state the direct reason why parents did this, which is because they are cheaper during the school term. 3. You should explain the direct reason why term time holidays have been banned, which is because they may damage the child's education. 4. You should explain how they have been banned. By how, I mean what method did parents previously use to be able to have a term time holiday, and that is that head teachers are no longer allowed to give permission to parents to take a term time holiday. 5. You should say the consequences of breaking the rule, which is that parents and schools will be penalized. And finally, you should state the indirect reason why holidays have been banned. What I mean by this is a general statement about the future hopes for the education in the UK. And the article states that overall the government hopes that banning term time holidays will help to make education more rigorous. For the second and third points, it is important to realise that there are essentially 2 aspects to the topic. Firstly, parents could take their children on term time holidays. Secondly, these types of holidays have been banned. Therefore, the second point provides the direct explanation for the first aspect of the topic, and the third point provides the direct explanation for the second aspect. I have some general advice which you should remember and follow for your TEM-4 summaries. Firstly, when reading the article and planning your summary, you must identify the most important pieces of information. You should then put these in the most logical order, and your summary should follow this order. Therefore, you must include as many of the important pieces of information as possible. The mistake I see most commonly in summary writing is, as I said before, that students sometimes focus more on their language than their content. The result of this is a beautiful paragraph with excellent grammar and vocabulary, but 3 big problems. Firstly, the student may not have used enough of the important points. Secondly, he or she may have used an illogical order for the points, which limits the reader's understanding of the summary. Thirdly, he or she may have been tautological. I introduced this concept in another episode in this series, in which I explained how to write succinctly. Basically, being tautological means saying the same thing twice. So, in the case of the TEM-4 summary, it means that the writer thought he or she had made a different point, but he or she actually repeated the same point using different words. This is especially easy for points 3 and 6, because there are 2 similar ways to express each point. Therefore, it is really important to think about and understand each point as much as possible to avoid repeating the same point with different words. Regarding how the TEM-4 examiner will grade the summary, I can tell you that it will be very systematic, because your grade is based on following the logical order and including as many of the important pieces of information as possible. Therefore, you will get a top grade for including all of the pieces of information in the most logical order, and a low grade if you don't have enough of these pieces of information and the points that you do include are in an illogical order. The most obvious illogical order would be following the original order of the article. You will get a low grade even if your language level is very high. So, when writing the summary section, you must remember what you need to do in order to get a top grade. To help you remember what you need to do, I want you to remember the 3 S's. To get the highest possible grade for your summary, your writing must be simple, systematic, and succinct. By simple, I mean you must use the most straightforward language. Easy and short words are perfectly acceptable for the summary. Instead, you can demonstrate your high-level English in the opinion section, because remember that the TEM-4 exam tests 2 writing skills: summary writing and argumentative writing, and these 2 skills are completely different. To be systematic, your writing must be thorough and carefully planned to include all the necessary points. Finally, to be succinct, your essay must have as much meaning as possible, but have the smallest number of words as possible. Remember that in a summary, every word you write must be necessary. You cannot waste a single word. Based on my students' summary writing, I can share with you some unnecessary phrases, which either can be deleted or made shorter. For example, I often see filler phrases like, and so on, and it is said that. If you remove these phrases, you will save a few words, you will save time, and your writing will be more efficient. Another type of unnecessary phrase was not filler phrases with no meaning, but instead an inefficient way to say something. Shortening it might remove some meaning, but in a summary, that is not a problem. Here is one example. Instead of saying the UK's Education Secretary, you can just say the UK. Because the reader has enough context, he or she will understand what you are referring to. This is a very common technique called Synecdoche, that is Synecdoche. Another example of Synecdoche would be using Downing Street, which is where the British Prime Minister lives, instead of the British Prime Minister, in a sentence like, Downing Street tonight announced that the epidemic situation in the UK is very severe. Saying Downing Street instead of the British Prime Minister saves 2 words, and with enough context, we understand the meaning of the sentence. Before we look at examples of my students' summary writing, I want to follow up what I said on the previous page about unnecessary phrases, and also follow up on what I said about newspaper articles usually containing multiple paragraphs, quotes, unessential information, and repetitions of essential information. I've said a lot about what you should include, but in case anyone is confused about what not to include in your summary, then here are a few examples. Firstly, you should not include people's names, such as Michael Gove. Secondly, you should not include a person's title or their job description. In the article, an example was Russell Hobby, the General Secretary of the National Association of Head Teachers. Thirdly, you should not include any quotes in the article. For example, the article quotes the Department for Education and Russell Hobby. Next, you should not include any information that can be more succinctly paraphrased. For example, you should say the UK instead of the UK's Education Secretary. Next, you should not include any additional unnecessary details. So, for example, looking at the article, the point about the distinction between authorized and unauthorized absence is extra information about point 4. It's not essential information about point 4. Finally, you should not include any repeated information. because the article is sometimes tautological, which is natural for newspaper articles. For example, it talks about facing fines and also stricter penalties. You only need to say one of these in your article. This is not the criteria that the real TEM-4 examiner will use, but it is a standard criteria that many teachers around the world use. A type of 70 means that the summary is acceptable overall, but it has some significant problems which lower the grade. A type of 80 is good or even very good, but there are a few minor weaknesses. Finally, a type of 90 means that it is excellent overall. Let's now look at some of my students' summaries. I'll start with the lowest grade and end with the highest grade. We'll see 182, 185, 188, and 4 92s. And finally, I will share my summary with you. I also handwrote this in 10 minutes, so it is a genuine example of an answer written in exam conditions. Firstly, I will read this summary. Then, please pause the video and have a think about it, and then I'll share with you my thoughts. To make children get more strict education, term-time holidays are banned. Parents can't take their children on holidays in term time or they will get fined, and the heads are abolished the right to authorize absence from the class. There are penalties for parents and schools in the future. Even though the order at the beginning seems strange, it is not a huge problem to use the conclusion, which is point 6, to justify the topic, which is point 1. In fact, it works rather well, and doesn't waste any words. However, the fatal flaw with this answer is that 2 essential points are missing. These 2 points provide crucial explanation for why children were taken on term-time holidays and why these types of holidays have been banned. Without these, the rest of the summary is difficult to fully understand, and it definitely feels incomplete. Finally, the answer is tautological because point 5 is repeated in different ways. Firstly, by saying that parents will be fined, and secondly, that there will be penalties for parents. This shows that the writer didn't fully understand the points that he or she included, because this point was repeated in different ways in the article. You must avoid this in your own summary writing. Here is the next summary, which got a slightly higher grade. I will read it, then please pause the video and have a think about it, and then I'll share with you my thoughts. Parents are to be banned from taking their children out of school during term time. It might damage children's education. If parents do so, they will face fines. Not only school, but also parents and government are supposed to take stricter measures. Education is more important than holiday, although it might cost more money on holidays. Mr. Gove makes an attempt to make rigorous education. Overall, this summary feels more succinct and systematic. I like the style much more than the first example. However, 3 issues prevent it from getting a higher grade. Firstly, point 4 is missing. Secondly, point 3 is repeated with slightly different words. And finally, the order is a little strange, because point 2, which is an essential justification of the topic, appears near the end. Also, point 2 is in an indirect form. Instead of saying that term-time holidays are cheaper, it says the opposite, that holidays during real holidays are more expensive. Because this crucial point is obscured, it gets a grade of 85. But this example still has a lot of strengths, and would get a very high grade if these issues were fixed. Here is the next summary, which got a slightly higher grade. I'll read it, then please pause the video and have a think about it, and then I'll share with you my thoughts. In order to establish education more academically and systematically, and cultivate students more thoroughly, the school bans the term time holidays. Under this circumstance, the difference between authorized and unauthorized absence will disappear, and the parents who disobey this rule to take children out of school will be fined. This ban is based on that a child's education is more important than a holiday. You might be surprised that I gave this 88, whereas the previous answer got 85. Based on the number of points included and the order of those points, it looks weaker than the previous answer. Nevertheless, I like this answer because it is succinct, it does not repeat any points, and it only omits one of the 6 points. Thus, it contains a lot of important information in only a few words, which is exactly the goal of this task. Remember that the goal of this task is to focus on content more than language. So even though I prefer the style of the previous answer, this answer ticks more of the boxes for an effective summary. However, it is only 88, so could easily get a higher grade if it included the second point, which is the reason why parents took their children on holiday during the school term, and also fixed a few minor grammatical issues. Overall, there is a lot to like about this answer. Let's now look at 4 summaries which all scored 92. Here is the first. I will read it, then please pause the video and think about it, and then I'll share my thoughts with you. In UK, parents are to be stopped from taking their children for holiday during school semesters to save money. The distinction between authorized and unauthorized absence will be ended, and parents may get fined if they break this rule. The penalties are getting stricter to bring down truancy levels in schools. This is the first summary that really follows the 3 S's. The language is definitely simple, the content is systematic, and the writing style is succinct. I especially like the efficient way that point 2 is joined to the end of the point 1 sentence. This works well and saves a lot of words. This student used all of the summary techniques that I shared with you in the episode in this series about writing summaries. Therefore, this summary has not wasted a single word. The only thing missing is the explanation of why term time holidays have been banned. With this, it would get a top grade. Here is the second of the 4 summaries. I'll read it, then pause the video to think about it, and then I'll share my thoughts with you. The article illustrates that parents are banned from taking their children out of school to save money on holidays, and the right of head teachers to authorize absence will be abolished to bring down truancy levels in schools. There will be stricter penalties for parents and schools. Again, as with the previous example, this summary delivers a lot of the key information in very few words. The only inefficient part is the beginning. The article illustrates that is completely unnecessary. You can simply begin with, parents are banned from. Next, the order of the points is logical, but 2 of them, 3 and 6, are missing. I'm sure you can feel that, especially without point 3, the summary feels incomplete. If these were included, then it would again be an excellent answer. Here is the third of the 4 summaries. I'll read it, then please pause the video to think about it, and then I'll share my thoughts with you. Parents are banned from taking children out of school for term time holiday in order to save money. There will be strict penalties for parents and schools, and government abolished the right of head teacher to authorize absence. Because term-time holidays can damage a child's education, and education is more important than a holiday. This summary is also very strong, but is unusual for a few reasons. Firstly, it states the consequence of breaking the rule, which is point 5, before it states why the rule has been changed, which is point 3. In my opinion, this is an illogical order. Another intriguing decision by the writer is to put point 3 at the end. It is a crucial justification for the topic, because it explains why term-time holidays have been banned. Therefore, it is strange to put it at the end of the summary. Point 6, which explains the UK government's hope that this rule change will have long-term benefits for the quality of education, is a more suitable way to conclude the summary. Here is the final summary. I'll read it, then pause the video to have a think about it, and then I'll share my thoughts with you. Parents are banned from taking children out of school for term-time holiday for the saving money reason, and the right of head teachers to permit absence is also abolished. If parents take their children for term-time holiday, they will be fined. Russell Hobby comment that the education of children is more important than holidays. This is very similar to the previous answer, so I won't repeat myself. I will simply add that one improvement here is that point 4 and 5 follow the logical order. I can understand why point 3 is chosen to be the final point, but I still believe that point 6 is a much more appropriate choice. Another weakness of this summary is mentioning a person's name and quoting him. It adds some nice extra detail, but it is not essential information, and thus must not be included in your summary. Thus, if you delete the words "Russell Hobby comments that," the summary still has the same basic meaning. Finally, here is my summary. I am not saying that this is the best possible answer. Instead, this is simply the best that I can write, and it includes all of the important points in the most logical order. I'll read it, then please pause the video to have a think about it, and then I'll share with you my thoughts. UK families will be banned from taking term-time holidays, which they do because these holidays are cheaper. However, it may damage children's education. So, head teachers are no longer allowed to give permission to parents. If head teachers do, and if parents take their children on holiday, they will both be penalised. Overall, this will make education more rigorous. In my opinion, it is simple, systematic, and succinct, because it delivers all of the key information with no unnecessary words. It is only 59 words, which is shorter than the 60 to 65 that I recommended. But if you have any suggestions for improving my summary, then please write a comment below the video. This is the end of the video about the summary section of the TEM-4 2016 essay. If you liked what you heard, then you can find more videos in my Writing Skills series, as well as other series on the topics of English and linguistics. Thank you for watching.